And we all know Nintendo's got some good games for the for those purposes. The game design, and especially with Splatoon, I feel like we're beating a dead horse here, but.
But yeah, well, I guess we could we could switch topics. I think that we can actually see the maps coming up in this next round, which should be.
Let me go take a look.
Yeah, let's click on the brackets here.
Which one we're looking at? Nosebreathers and Nsquared, right?
I believe so. It should be round. I think any round 2 will give us the maps, or perhaps the maps. The maps are right here. Round 2. So groups round 2. Tower Control on Humpback Pump Track, Rainmaker on Moray Towers, and Splat Zones on Sturgeon Shipyard. So this is a fun one. This is definitely a good 3 different maps with 3 different play styles. So first we have Tower Control and Humpback Pump Track, and Humpback Pump Track is a pretty interesting map. It's in some ways it's similar and both different to what we saw in Splatoon 1 Kelp Dome. Even though it's styled kind of like how Black Pelly Skate Park, it's like, this is a skate park, this is a BMX bike track. Yeah, you would expect them to be similar, but in effect, in Splatoon 2, it's a very wide circular map where people spawning have the option of moving in a ring on the outside of the map with the objective in the middle that has to move towards that ring in order to be pushed. And it also Kelp Dome, I think that it got usurped by Pit because Pit is just a huge map that has a lot of extra space on the outside of the play area to paint, but the actual area of play is a very large circle and has the most surface area of any of the maps in Splatoon 2.
Absolutely. That's a very, very cool thing about Humpback Pump Track is that a lot of other maps, there's like walls and barriers and stuff everywhere, but Humpback Pump Track is basically just a big open field. There's no walls, there's not a lot of cover. It's all done with like hills and elevation.
Yeah, definitely. And tower control on that map also pushes the tower along the side of that outer ring that we talked about. And what makes it unique for this map is when that tower gets pushed to the edge of that outer ring, the defenders of the map have a height advantage directly on the tower as it has to sit there and wait at the checkpoint. So even though there are only 2 checkpoints on this map, they take a while to... The clocks for the checkpoints for tower control take a while to wind down. And they're also in these kind of vulnerable positions. So it does force a kind of focal point of where you need to control when the tower gets to the checkpoint, and then after that you'll see the kind of the area of contention widens again as the tower moves to the next checkpoint. So it's kind of a cool way to take advantage of how exactly the mechanics work on the specific map. After Humpback Pump Track Tower Control, we have Rainmaker on Moray Towers. So again, we're going to be playing on a remake of the Splatoon 1 map. Moray Towers hasn't changed as much as Port Mackerel has. It's more or less the same map, but movement options on Moray Towers have changed significantly. There's now the zip lines on the map that allow players to move around different parts of Moray Towers very quickly.
Not only have they added the zip lines, but they've also just more or less made the map a lot wider. There's a lot more room to move around in, which really helps a lot of the more aggressive players actually find ways into the enemy team and able to find more flank routes and have movement options while they're fighting people up there.
Yeah, it's the difference between fighting and just kind of like on a blank platform and fighting on a wider platform with some boxes and ramps and stuff to break line of sight between your opponent and you to be able to do something besides just stand there and shoot, I guess, if that makes sense, going from Splat 1 to Splat 2 on Moray Towers.
Right. Another change with Moray Towers is the map is a lot less vertical. It's kind of like they pushed their hand down on the top and squished it down a bit. So while it is still Moray Towers, it still has a lot of verticality to it. It's not as much as it was in Splatoon 1, which gives a lot of medium to short range weapons a bit more of an advantage than they had in the first game.
Yeah, especially with those aforementioned zip lines that we talked about. Those short range weapons have much faster ways to get to the high ground, which means that a sniper up top can be taken on very easily. As soon as you find an opportunity to be able to get up top, your close and medium range weapons can immediately get up to the top of the map and challenge those longer range weapons that usually are just kind of able to sit up on top of the towers and dominate the middle area.
After that, we got Splat Zone's Sturgeon Shipyard. This is another interesting map. I like to compare it a lot to Starfish Main Stage, but I don't kind of give it the same crap that I give Starfish Main Stage. This one actually has a lot of good flank routes. It's got a good area where your team can watch the middle of the map and get a lot of opportunities to push in. It's got some moving parts on it too that are sometimes a little more opportune than others, but for the most part, there's still a lot of good ways to push back in to the center from whether it be a base lock or maybe the towers on your side. You got to get the Rainmaker out.
Yeah, I think that if you look at Sturgeon and you look at Main Stage from like a top-down view, they look like similar maps. Both maps have a horizontal platform that goes across the center of the map where the objective tends to be, and then in moving from that center point to the enemy base, there are three general that go from the base to the center of the map, but all of them allow you to get to the center of the map in the same horizontal plane. And on Main Stage, because the bases are very compact and small, no matter where you kind of try to leave out of your base, you're still approaching the middle of the level from that same horizontal line, which means that a team that's set up properly can attack you from a lot of places just by kind of sitting there, which is why a lot of people don't like the base locks. But the difference between Sturgeon and Main Stage is Sturgeon's bases are so huge, and those three pathways move so far away from the map. If you try to push left or right on Main Stage, a team can kind of do the same thing and hold you off when you do both options. But on Sturgeon, if you push left or right, the enemy team has to completely abandon their strategy to keep up with you, which makes it much easier to kind of shake the enemy team up to push out of your spawn.
Right, that's a good way to put it. Sturgeon Shipyard is a lot similar to Starfish Main Stage, but it's kind of been expanded, which may sound, like not that big of a deal, but the range on all the weapons are the same. The map gets bigger, but your range stays the same, which means people need to move around a lot more in order to cover all of the pushing options.
Yeah, so we'll definitely, like we talked about before, Splat Zones is a game mode where you take the objective in the center of the map, and then you're encouraged to push up to continue holding that objective, as opposed to something like Tower Control or Rainmaker, where you have to push the objective into the enemy base and bring the objective with you, which puts you at a disadvantage. So we'll see how defending teams are able to take advantage of the more potent map take-back options on Sturgeon Shipyard and able to move forward and take the game.
And I believe teams are probably still setting up here. We should have the match soon for you guys.
Yeah, one of the teams definitely got into the lobby, and they're waiting. We're just waiting on the second team, which I believe was Nosebreathers, right? Yes, Nosebreathers. So as soon as Nosebreathers gets into the lobby, we'll be able to go ahead and start it up. Yeah, in the meantime, I guess we could talk a little bit more about Splat 2. What weapons have you been playing?
Ooh, I'm gonna get a lot of flack for saying this. I've been playing sloshers lately, and I gotta defend myself here. I said months before this game came out, I was like, when Splatoon 2 comes out, I'm maining sloshers, and it just so happens that they're really strong. It's not. I didn't do this on purpose. Okay.
This reminds me of when Super Smash Bros. Brawl came out. I remember there was someone who played a low-tier character in Melee. He played Bowser. That when he saw Meta Knight get announced, he was like, I'm picking this character, I don't care. And then Meta Knight ended up being like the strongest character in the game. And someone who used to be known for picking a very low tier character ended up picking the best character in the game by far. So it's kind of ironic how that worked out. So I guess you can tell that story to use as an excuse, but we'll still talk trash later.
Okay, fine. Yeah, that's fair though. The sloshers are a lot of people have been kind of complaining about them. Sloshers didn't really receive too many changes between the games. They're more or less the same. They got a little bit of a range buff, especially on the Tri-Slosher.
We are about to start up, so hopefully I can fit in my insight right before the game loads up here, as all players are in the lobby and ready. But I think that the biggest change to Tri-Slosher in particular has been the range increase.
Right.
The thing about the Tri-Slosher is it has a very large hitbox that will consistently take out the opponent in 2 sloshes. And in Splatoon 1, the Tri-Slosher had a pretty short range, which put it in line with weapons like the Luna Blaster and the Octobrush, where these weapons kind of have this purpose of being able to get close to weapons that might run a lot of run speed or be very mobile and hard to hit, and they kind of get like these guaranteed maximum kill times once they get close. But increasing the range on the Tri-Slosher has kind of taken that type of weapon and turned it into something that can they can get kills without getting too close, and that's something that players are having difficulty dealing with. The sloshers, they are immobile, and they do have difficulty in team fights and dealing with lots of grenades being spammed at them, etc. But right now they're kind of serving this purpose which Defense Tenatech served in Splatoon 1, where the Defense up Tenatech would purposely challenge other weapons and just have an unfair advantage in a one-on-one firefight. And when there's one-on-ones, that's what Tri-Slashers are kind of doing now. They're taking the advantage where they can get these easy 2-slash kills once they're in range of pretty much the same range as an SMG, and use that to win firefights. So if we do see some Tri-Slashers, we should look out to see how they challenge individual players that maybe aren't with the rest of the pack.
Right. Another thing that's making the Tri-Slosher so strong right now is normally with sloshers, if they get, caught out in some enemy ink, it's kind of rough for them to get out. The
Right.
slosh takes a long time to come out and they can't really move that well when they're doing it. Tri-Slosher has burst bombs, which come out very, very quick, as well as Splatoon 2 has now unlocked the ink resistance slot, which means you can stack it.
Yep.
So they can be very mobile in the middle of fights, which is something you didn't see from Splatoon 1.
And speaking of the middle of fights, we're about to start off game 1 of set 2, Tower Control on Humpback Pump Track.
We got the Rapid Blaster coming out from Nsquared.
Yeah, and we see a Tri-Slosher on both teams, actually. One of the Tri-Sloshers I'm seeing wearing some ink-resistant swing speed. The other Tri-Slosher using last-ditch effort and special duration. So,
wow.
Two completely different strategies here.
Adam trying to push the tower here. God, the duel, he didn't stay on too long. He was trying to... Wow, okay, that was a fast exchange. Okay.
Yeah.
So Nosebreathers getting a very, very quick team wipe in the blink of an eye, and now they're going to be able to get a pretty strong early push here. We got Nani sitting on the tower, doing what they can with that Octo Brush. Oh, finally going down. Unfortunately, again to that Rapid Blaster. I kind of cut myself off earlier. The Rapid Blaster is another strong weapon in the early days of Splatoon 2.
Yeah, like we talked about before, that tower did have to push up to some high ground that gave the defending team an advantage. Now, because of that early wipe, they were Nosebreathers was able to get past that checkpoint because they didn't have much resistance. But as soon as the resistance, the game did swing in the other direction. Now, Nsquared is pushing the tower. Rapid Blaster getting on the tower with his teammate here, going to put some splash damage up on the enemy high ground to stop them from being able to defend easily.
That was exactly what Nsquared wanted as a response to that first team push and team wipe that Nosebreathers was able to get on them. Now they're looking really good. They actually got the lead too, as well as another team wipe. All 4 players down on Nosebreathers. Wow, this is the perfect response to what just happened to them.
Yeah, Nsquared definitely getting back up cleanly after that fumble at the beginning of the game, and now they have the tower down to 3 points. However, members of Nsquared are going down, and that is a reverse team wipe again for Nosebreathers. So let's see if they can take the tower. It looks like we have Nosebreathers pushing up to the center of the map. Map's being played in blue right now as the tower gets past checkpoint 1. As Nsquared, the Rapid Blast, Nestor, I'm sorry, of Nsquared does go down trying to defend, and Nosebreathers has a 4v3 advantage pushing up to checkpoint 2.
Ooh, Inkjet coming out just a little bit too late from Nani on the Octo Rush there. They were trying to use the stay alive. It looks like kind of hold the tower, for as long as they could while a couple of their teammates were down. But they had a really good, Nosebreathers had a very, very good push onto the tower there. Wait, the game's over.
I was about to say, what is happening? The tower's pushed to 1 and a bunch of members went down. Unfortunately, that lone dually Squelcher was trying to defend the tower. As a lot of back and forth, I mean, we saw both teams almost knock it out. As much as that was swinging, is swang even a word? As much as that tower was able to swing back and forth in both directions, Nosebreathers is going to end up taking it by 2 points.
And that was actually a pretty crazy game. A lot of back and forth, a lot of team wipes into a push. Not many, like pick fights. Whereas it was mainly just, one team slaying the entire other team, pushing it as far as they could, and then it happens to them. And it was just back and forth. And fortunately for Nosebreathers, they just, the cards worked out in their favor, and they were able to get the knockout.
Yeah, the nature of that game where both teams would push into each other kind of full force. One team would wipe, and then the team that won that engagement would continue pushing at full force, and sometimes they would get wiped in return. I feel that in this particular matchup, whichever team is able to kind of recognize that these full-blown pushes are leading to their teams getting wiped afterwards, if they were to just maybe back up a little bit once the other team starts to spawn so that they can get 4 up and win another engagement push again, I think that a little bit of patience in the second engagement after a team wipe in their favor could get them some more points on the board. So if one team kind of recognizes that and starts being able to take more advantage of situations where they get a team wipe, I think that they'll be able to more consistently get a win in the next 1 or 2 matches that are going to be happening in the set.
Right, and for the next one we got here, Mori Towers Rainmaker. Interesting game mode. It's more or less unchanged from Splatoon 1 in terms of mechanics and how you want to be pushing the Rainmaker, except for the addition of the ink rails, which let the Rainmaker move very, very fast in certain spots. As long as you're in the right spot at the right time, you can get some very quick points.
Yeah, no, the ink rails as well, being just such a a crazy addition to the way this map works, and as well as changing the way Rainmaker points work on this map. As we've seen in Splatoon 1, taking the Rainmaker left and climbing up the walls would get some very low point values, but the point values have been changed, so taking the Rainmaker to the right does, in fact, get you points faster, even if it's a little bit harder to do, so they've kind of balanced out the options to take the Rainmaker in Splatoon 2. Speaking of such, though, Bloodbath at the center of the map as teammates from players from both teams go down, resulting in a 3 versus 2 situation as Nosebreathers is able to grab the Rainmaker at the start.
Cool thing to note here is Nosebreathers is running a charger, but we don't see any sort of range weapons coming out from Nsquared right now, and the longest range they have is a Splattershot Pro. So I think what they're probably trying to do here is they're very confident. Mojo, the solo push. Someone stop this person!
Will he be taken out? He will be taken out, taking the Rainmaker all the way to 9. So once again, just a huge swing of momentum at the start of this game as Nosebreathers is able to take the Rainmaker to 9. An explosion does take out some defenders on Nsquared's team as they are able to luckily play the Rainmaker. The Rainmaker is going to reset back to the middle of the map, and it's going to give Nsquared an opportunity to kind of regroup and re-engage, but Nosebreathers is still on their side of the map. Octobrush running around, Slosher underneath supporting him as this isn't the most stable situation for Nsquared.
Yeah, unfortunately, right when that Rainmaker reset, they were suffering from a team wipe. All 4 of them were dead, and now you've got Nosebreathers
Rainmaker pushing.
looking really, really strong right here. They've got another push with the Rainmaker
side.
Almost the Petzl. Got it down to 5 points.
Yeah, that was a little bit scary for Nsquared for a second there. The Rainmaker getting to their spawn a second time. Nestor himself is going to be able to pick up the Rainmaker and take it to the center of the map. 4v2 situation. Hopefully his teammates are able to coordinate well and make this into an effective push as they're going to take the Rainmaker right up this zip line and up into the...
This is dangerous.
Ooh, they are met by a ready force of close-range weapons that take out the Rainmaker and his teammates pretty much instantly. 1v2 situation now as Nsquared is pretty much able to defend well, as it seems that they are able to stop Nosebreathers from taking the Rainmaker back to their side of the map, but it's not quite enough as the Rainmaker does get picked up by Nosebreathers, avoiding those missiles and ending up getting an engagement in the center of the map.
Right, so Nosebreathers, what they could be doing here is, they could play safe. It kind of depends how comfortable they are with the way that Nsquared is playing right now. They've got to push.
Oh, Rainmaker kill.
That was so close to being a double pick with the Rainmaker, which would have been very, very good. They were in a really good spot to push that up, but Nosebreathers is able to clean up most of Nsquared here. They're actually looking pretty strong on the defense right now.
Yeah, no, Nsquared only able to take the Rainmaker to 67, while they did have a lot of momentum there, and they were able to kind of defend the objective after it had gone into a state where it needed to be attacked to continue moving. They weren't really able to get that many points on the board. However, that being said, 2v1 situation, as the Rainmaker is popped, and Nsquared is going to be able to pick it up again.
So Nsquared, this is what they were looking for. They just got 4 players down on Nosebreathers, so this is their chance to push. It looks like they're going to take it up that left side. As soon as you touch the top of that left platform, your score goes to about 46, I believe.
Oh, well, they've actually changed that, so I'm not exactly sure what the point value is,
47.
but I know that, yeah, 47, so not quite as strong as it was in Splatoon 2, considering that on the right side of the map you do get points a lot faster, because before, if you took it right, you could only go down to 60, which was obviously a disadvantage if you took it right and your opponent took it left. But that all being said, the Rainmaker is going to get popped. There's going to be a fight in the center of the map now, as Nosebreathers is going to pick up the objective. Tri-Slasher is going to go down. More kills going to be happening in the center of the map.
Right before they drop, they got that ink armor off, which means their team's in a good spot to push. Mojo taking up the ink rails again. We saw the solo push earlier. Can they do it again?
He's going to climb up the side
using
here.
The sides. They
sneaking
can't,
past.
Whoa.
Oh, he almost falls off. Gets the dunk. It happens.
Oh, that was interesting. There was some a little bit of latency issues going on my side, but I think it worked out for them. Maybe.
Yeah, a little bit of vertical rubber banding there. There's something that happens to happen in that corner in particular, just the way that the netcode works and the way that particular part of the map is a little bit different than normal. But no, Nosebreathers is going to take it 2-0, so a very close game 1, a lot of back and forth, into a game 2 that was still back and forth, but it wasn't very close. Both teams were able to trade Rainmaker and trade near wipe situations back and forth, but Nosebreathers was able to just take that Rainmaker into the enemy base consistently every time, while Nsquared they just weren't able to push it as far. So it could be an issue of not knowing the best ways to take the Rainmaker. It could be an issue of them just not quite having 4 up at the same time. Just a lot of trades going on throughout that game. So pretty wild. It actually looked like pretty fun for Nsquared, even if they didn't win it, just because of the shifts in momentum back and forth in that game 1. So hopefully Nsquared continues on enjoying the tournament.
And I'd like to point out that the play from Mojo, not only at the beginning of the game, but at the very end when they got the knockout, using the side of the walkway of the ramp on Mori Towers that was painted there, it was able to actually keep them relatively safe while they were moving up the Rainmaker, even in the midst of the entire enemy team. And if it wasn't for that, they absolutely would have been wiped out before they even got close to the pedestal. So really good work there.
Yeah, that is a path that Krakens used to take in Splatoon 1, and the Rainmaker would kind of follow the Kraken path. However, because of the new Rainmaker in Splatoon 2, with the Rainmaker, you can paint that path yourself. And after Nosebreathers did that earlier on in the match, I guess Nsquared wasn't aware of the strategy, and they didn't paint over it. And that allowed, every time that Nosebreathers got back to that point in the map, they were able to take the Rainmaker up that wall and get it very close to the base, which eventually just got them a knockout.
And so that was your second set of the day. 2-0 going to Nosebreathers. A good set though. It was, especially the humpback pump track game. That was a very, very, very good one to watch. Lots of back and forth on both teams. They both played well.